Then thank you very much. I am very happy to present you this afternoon here in Switzerland with my colleague Christoph Böhm, our new VuFind-based portal and with the name Swiss Collections. And first, I will give you some context background, then do a little demo and with some technical insights. And at the end, we will explain how we deploy our solution, like based on containers for development and production. So a little bit of background. I work for the University Library of Basel, and some of you might know us through the SwissBib portal, which was a Swiss-wide meta catalog. And the portal was done with VuFind. And actually, that project had an end last year at the end of 2020, as most of Swiss university libraries migrated their ILS to Ex Libris Alma. And so most of Swiss university libraries switch to Primo for the catalog, the discovery interface for their user. But in summer last year, a couple of librarians from like special collections, like maps, archives, old books, manuscripts, music notes, they came to us and said, yeah, we are not really happy with how it works with Primo for all these special collections. We would like to do a project with you. And that was actually the start of this swisscollections.ch project, which started in summer last year and went live this April. It was developed by the backend was done by the University Library of Basel, and most of the design and front-end work was done by the Outermedia company, which is based in Berlin. And there were like 7 libraries in Switzerland, which were the founding members of this association, which financed the swisscollections.ch portal. Here are the people involved in Basel. Some of you might know some of us, and that were the people involved on the side of Outermedia. Okay, then let's go to the demo. Okay, then I will start with like auto suggest. Can you see it well, or should I make it bigger? Maybe like that. Okay, then we use the standard VuFind auto suggest, but we extended it a bit actually, because there are like 2 parts, like suggestions for titles and suggestions for persons. And actually it's a bit different than the standard VuFind, because here we do actually a search with Bernoulli star and give the top 3 most relevant titles. And for the authors, it's a facet-based suggestion. Actually, we do a search with Bernoulli star in all fields. And then we give back the top 3 facets for this person. And you can see that this Bernoulli is a famous family of mathematicians and scientists from Basel, and most of them have the same name. So it's very useful here to have like detailed information. So I choose one person, and yeah, what's a bit special also in Swiss Collection is like the librarians behind the project. They were very interested to have like not only the authors or the persons in the author facet, but they want to have it with the role. Is Bernoulli the author of a letter, or was the letter addressed to Bernoulli? So we use like the VuFind hierarchical facets to address that problem. Another important part, a very important part in Swiss collection is the manuscripts and old books. And yeah, the libraries which insert these documents in the catalog, they take very special care to catalog them extensively. It might last up to 2 weeks to catalog very precisely an old manuscript. And actually, the librarians, they were not really happy with how their carefully done work was displayed in Primo. And then here you can see like a manuscript from the 15th century. And as you can see here on the right, there is really a lot of metadata. Like most of the content, you have like the start of almost each page of this manuscript, the notes, history, the binding, and it's really very structured information. All is at the start is in the MARC format in Alma, and we then prepare that special display, this structured display. What might be interesting for some of you is actually the librarians. They were working in a wiki table where they could say, for example, the terms of access should be part of this group terms of use, and they can move the things in that table in the wiki, and then we just export a CSV file and import it in VuFind, and then all the fields appear where they should appear. Exactly. A very important collection in Swiss collection are the archives. And in the archives world, what is very important is the hierarchy of the archives. As an example, we have a lot of archives from business units of Switzerland. And sorry, this is in English. Let's see, I am interested in airlines. And there was actually an airline based in Basel. The name was Baler. And actually you can like navigate in the hierarchy. These are like normal standard hierarchical VuFind facets. And then when you find the airlines which interest you, you can open the airlines, and on that part we use the hierarchies and collections feature of VuFind. I'll come back to that, and you can really navigate into this archive. So the strategy, the finance, or yearly report, and so on. And let's say you are interested in that, and you always have the whole hierarchy of this particular archive. And this is all done using this feature, very useful feature of VuFind. I don't know if a lot of VuFind users use that, but for our use case, it was really very, very helpful. Exactly, and now I hand over to my colleague, Christoph.
I'm going to present a few more features that we used in Swiss collections. The first one is the browse the catalog feature, which is very, in the way we use it, is very near to the standard VuFind, but we extended it to make it more configurable to better suit our needs, because we had requirements that so I think in the original code there are some fields are hard coded there, and it's not completely configurable, and it was very important for us to configure the first and the second column. I'm going to show that to you. So we can configure the columns. For one thing is, of course, the facet, but the other thing that was very important for us to configure the second facet for each separate category. So that looks like this here. I'm going to open the browser so you have a little bit more idea of it. So like here we filter on the document type, what we're going to see here on the results side, or I'm going to switch to English. And here we have the other category we want to filter on, and it depends on the first category what subcategories are displayed here, and also the sequence of it is controlled by the configuration. So that is near to the standard functionality, but extended in the way we can configure it. The next feature is based on the Alphabrowse functionality, but that didn't really work for us the way it's right now, because I'm not sure if a lot of projects are using this. It's based on MySQL, I think, and we wanted to have it based on Solr as well. And so again, we extended the Alphabrowse controller and the view helper, but mainly because we wanted to reuse the template code. Could have done that in a different way too, but we found out later that we really added a lot of or changed a lot here. We utilized the term component of Solr, and this backend and the API was implemented by Günther Hippler of the team Basel. And again, a very important focus here was on configurability. A configuration of that is not only that we have some groups, also we have a few pages of other configuration like that, just to make sure that all the different ways of access can be displayed in the user interface. I'm going to show that to you in a short demo here. Again, I'm going to open the browser. And this time I'm going to switch to English first. So we have different categories here. And so let's go to persons and corporate bodies. And again, we have a lot of subcategories that can be used here to really search in a very specific way. And going to show a search like that to you. So let's see if I can find some works of Lionel here. Okay, we start with Leo. First, I show you we navigate back. So the last entry before LIO here in our index here is LINZ. So that seems to work, and that is the backwards navigation. And so let's see if we find some entries with Lionel here. Still not. But there we have a Lionel Hampton, so that's obviously not you, Lionel, but here we can just jump to our usual result list. Yeah, and that works in a very performant way to scroll through the alphabetic index, and it's all based on Solr. Okay, these were some of the features you can see in our catalog. Now we're going to talk about the way we set up the project, and as Lionel said, it's based on Docker containers. And we use Docker containers on the full process. So starting with a development setup with some benefits like that every developer uses the same environment. This is most importantly, this is the PHP version and start modules and things like that. This project we had an external Solr, so that works anyway, but database and web server are not that important, but still they're set up and ready to use for every developer just directly from the start. And in the development setup, we just mount the source code directly into the container. So new developers or every developer can test changes instantaneously, and just when someone comes into the project, just start up the container and everything should work, and there's no setup that needs to be done, apart from having Docker running and checking out the repository. And actually, we use the same in the production setup. It's just some small changes. Then it runs in Kubernetes and not locally. And we have to have an external DB and again the external Solr. But the VuFind image is basically the same, just with all the code in it, and that is built by GitLab CI. So I'm going to talk about GitLab CI later. That is just the way how a Docker file can look like. And you can see here that we just copy all the code and configuration into it in the production setup. So it's self-contained and just can run like that. Okay, next step is how we do that. We use GitLab CI for that. That was a very easy choice because we use it for version control anyway. The benefits are that on any commit or on any push, to be more precise, the pipeline is started and builds a new Docker image with all the changes included, and it's going to publish it to the registry. So it's available for deployment directly after build, and yeah, can be, so let's say it's on a development branch, can be deployed to the development or test system immediately, or if we tag it in a semantic version way to put it on production later. And it is actually pretty easy. We just add a GitLab CI config file, what not really does more than build the image with the tag and push it to the registry. So that is almost all the code that is required to accomplish that. Also, it would have been possible to execute tests here, but we really don't have a lot of them because we're pretty based on the standard VuFind. And in GitLab CI, that looks like that. So we have the pipelines here, the last pipelines that run. And for instance, here I worked on a feature branch and later on merged that into the development branch. And Lionel later did some changes on the development branch. All of those pipeline runs result in a Docker image here on the right side, which are versioned. And yeah, I guess right now we are on version 1.1.0 on production. And how that works will be explained to you by Lionel again. So thank you. I'm going to leave the screen sharing so you can go on.
Okay, then how does that work? Actually, we are lucky here in Basel because our IT services, they have a Kubernetes cluster. For those of you who don't know, Kubernetes is like it's named a container orchestration software. When you have images, you can like deploy them or roll out new release and scale them up or down, and that's all what Kubernetes is doing for you. And then for the Swiss collection project, it starts here on the left. We harvest metadata from ALMA, from various ALMA institution zones. And all these blue part here are microservices which run in our Kubernetes cluster, and they process this metadata. We don't use the standard SolarMark module of VuFind. We have our own data processing pipeline. And for example, here we harvest more or less 18 million records, and then we save them to a NoSQL DB, MongoDB. Then we filter the records because at the end there are only the special collections which land in Swiss collection. We do some deduplication. We prepare the browse that Christoph showed you before. We map, normalize the data. We do this hierarchies and collections. We enrich the records with like the top ancestor, and then we index that in our Solr. And then we have the VuFind front end here on the top. And actually, this VuFind frontend is also running in our Kubernetes cluster. And how does that look like? Actually, you can also look at it yourself because it's in our source code under Kubernetes manifests. And I will show you the deployment. And actually here we use like let me make it a bit bigger. We use you can specify the PHP container you use, and we use a tagged, it's just a tag in Git. And we use that image from the GitLab container registry, which you can find here under package and registry, container registry. Here you can find all the images. And there is also an Nginx container, and both of them, they run together. And here you can specify the number of replicas. Currently, we have like 3 parallel servers, Docker images running. And the very good thing with that is actually when you want to deploy a new version, you just need to change like that version number, and you have one command, kubectl apply, and then Kubernetes will take care of your deployment, and there will be no interruption for your users, which is really quite practical. But because before in the SwissBib time, we used to do like new releases in the evening where not a lot of users are on the system, or on the weekend. And now we can really deploy a new release every day at 10 in the morning if we want. And that's really very practical. Maybe the configuration, there is in Kubernetes language, it's called like a config map. And basically we set here like the environment variable, and we took that way. Actually, in the config map in Kubernetes, we point at a local VuFind folder in the version control. And actually, all the other configurations are done directly as usual for VuFind in the config ini configuration files and facets ini and all the other files. Yeah, let me come back. So that's how it works. Here are some links. So the VuFind code is on GitLab, and like the microservices, you can also find them. And I also put the link here. If some of you are still looking for the old SwissBib, it's still available under another address, legacy.swissbib.ch. I take the occasion to thank you all in the community for this really great project, VuFind. Every time I come to the summit, I always feel a bit guilty because on our side, we haven't contributed that much. So my apologies. I know Damian is waiting something from me for at least 1 year, maybe. But yeah, that's always a bit difficult to fit in the schedule. And maybe if some of you have some tips how to convince management to invest in open source software for libraries, would be very helpful on our side. Okay, then I am all set. Let me stop sharing my screen. And time is open for questions.
Well, thank you very, very much. I personally really enjoyed seeing the theme and what you've done with that. Some of the things you've done for as far as organizing and stuff on the front end was particularly interesting to me. At the moment in the chat and in the Q&A and in the other sources, we don't have any questions. I'm hoping people are formulating and typing them as we go right now. We do have one in the chat right now. Can you see it, or shall I read it?
No, I can see them. Let me, where should I start? Then I start with the question from Mario, very interesting. How do you handle database schema, data migration within the deployment process? Actually, we don't have user login in Swiss Collection right now. Therefore, the database schema is very, very easy. It's only handles sessions. Actually, back then in SwissBib, we had like the full VuFind database. So I would say, actually, in the productive setup, we have the database is not included in Kubernetes. It's running on a virtual machine. Then we would like upgrade the database schema like usual. Actually, it doesn't really change what we do. I don't know if Christoph, you want to add something?
Mainly we have modifications on the code of the customizations. I think the data migration question is more about what happens if we switch to a new VuFind version. And so this will always, I guess that will always be a special process that is not fully automated, not fully part of this, because we don't do that all the time. That happens on very rare occasions. And we're still on VuFind 7 right now, so don't know if we're going to migrate to 8 and haven't checked the database changes there, but usually that's would just mean that we set up a new database and migrate the data and use the new database for the new deployment then, because the path to the database would be part of the configuration that also will be deployed and tested before on a testing environment, development environment, things like
that. There is a question in the Q&A from Ingo Frank. How did you implement the multilingual keywords in the faceted search? Yeah, I could maybe share. Actually, I am not really sure what you mean, but we have like very often we use the GND, like the one Mario showed yesterday in his talk, which is the standard authorities in German-speaking countries. And actually in the GND, there are translation, like if you look in the GND, the word algebra, which is algebra in English way, well, it's the same, but in French, it's algebra. And actually in the GND, you have like a version of this keyword in all languages. And when we index the data, we use all the translations of the keywords. So at that point, when you search algebra or algebra, if you have a subject headings algebra, you will find all the relevant documents with your language. In the facets, I don't know if that was your question. For example, here, the person I saw here is just a VuFind label. So we have in 4 languages because it's actually for every person the same. It's like the role in Mark standard. And for library names, it's in every language the same. And here it's just like labels, standard labels in language files in VuFind. And here actually it's a mix. You see, this is English, this is German. For the most common, we added some labels, but here it's really a mix of genre or form from various languages. I don't know if that answers your question, but if not, you can please speak up, or I don't know how to do that.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you very much. We're out of time for this particular presentation. I do see that there are more questions coming in the Q&A, so maybe hopefully later Christoph and Lionel can find the time to answer those in some other form. I also want to quickly inform that Damien's having some technical issues, but he wanted to pass along his thanks for the presentation, that there's a lot of things that he would love to talk about as far as contributions goes with all of this. So,
well, I guess I can step in and just momentarily say a few words about contribution that I was going to say before, and then my Zoom client went crazy, which is just that a couple of things that I saw in the Swiss Collections presentation are things that have, I think, been discussed elsewhere in the community and maybe of broader interest, specifically making browse more configurable and coming up with an Alphabrowse mechanism that does not rely on external database management. And to Lionel's point of how do you convince administration that contributions are worthwhile, I think the best selling point is that it's a matter of software maintenance. If you have a feature that you developed and rely on, and you can get that contributed to the core, even a simplified version of it that you can use as a foundation, then the maintenance of that software is no longer on your organization. You have the whole community to leverage to help with it. And then that in turn makes future upgrades easier, because this feature will then be taken into account as part of the package instead of having to be recalibrated against upstream changes. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Well, if there is nothing else, I think we can just start our break a little bit early and give people a chance to stretch their legs or get a snack.